Hi everyone, today I'm in London, UK, and it was a rainy day, so I decided to go to one of the world's most famous museums, the British Museum. Even if you're not a museum person, this museum will impress you. This museum is called the British Museum, but there's really nothing British about it, except that it's in Britain. I counted one room about Britain. You can really trace the whole history of human civilization from the beginning to the present day. It's not an exaggeration to say within these four walls hold some of the most culturally and historically significant and priceless pieces throughout world history and civilization. I'm not going to comment on how they acquired these pieces or why they haven't given them back to the countries of origin, but I think it makes them feel better that they don't charge admission fees to go into the museum. The most popular area is probably ancient Egypt, and specifically the mummy room. They have really a lot of mummies, sarcophaguses, canopic jars, things that accompanied people in the tombs for the afterlife, and they have a lot of information about it. This is how popular the room is. You can barely walk. So just to put this into perspective, I think the best Egyptian museum I've been to is the Cairo Egyptian Museum, and then this honestly might be the second. This or Luxor, and then Berlin. Although it wasn't on display today, this museum houses the Rosetta Stone, which is a cornerstone in our understanding of ancient Egypt because it allowed us to translate the hieroglyphs. It's funny because they focus on the pharaohs and the kings and their well-mummified sarcophaguses and gold-plated coffins and accoutrements and canopic jars and everything, and then they have this plebe who is basically buried with the equivalent of Tupperware. If that didn't impress you, you can move to the ancient Greece room, where they've taken murals, friezes, statues, and other pieces of art directly from the Parthenon on the Acropolis in Athens and placed them in this museum. They have so much material that they could recreate a whole porch of the Parthenon in this museum. The most interesting part of this exhibit, though, was watching groups of Greek people traveling from Greece to a random place not in the Greco-Roman world to see Greek artifacts and sculptures. And if that wasn't enough, then they have whole rooms filled with pottery, coins, jewelry, armor, weapons, and they have two rooms of just classical statues, which are insanely amazing. And here it is, folks. You've all been waiting for the exhibition on Britain, Anglo-Saxon England, 3 display cases. wasn't enough, then we go back in time to the first civilizations of Mesopotamia, covering Sumer, Babylon, and Assyria. They have numerous law tablets, artifacts. The Standard of Ur is housed in the British Museum, and then tons of gateways with lions with human heads. Then next they have an exhibit on Persia where they have a full-blown replica of Persepolis ancient site, and then they move forward in chronology to Islamic world and the different types of costumes that the people used in those. And if you go on the lower floors, then you get to Mesoamerica, which covers the indigenous pre-Columbian civilizations like the Incas, the Mayas, and the Aztecs. Here's some Mayan reliefs with hieroglyphs, very cool. And then there's a lot of jade carvings and pottery. As I said, the museum's free, but there's donation buckets. Of course, everyone donates their pounds, except for the Americans who give a $20 bill. Next was the Indigenous Cultures area, which focuses on native populations in the Americas and Oceania. The highlight for me was this cool Easter Island statue. I would say the items in this part of the museum were not as impressive, especially compared to some of the North American museums. In terms of the architecture of the building itself, it's impressive. It's a huge building, colonnaded in classical style, and then in the middle they have an atrium, which has the cafe and everything. I was really excited to come and see the Benin bronzes in the Africa section. I get there, closed. Why? Next is the Japan section, and while small, it's funded by the Mitsubishi Corporation. It's quite nice. It takes you through the whole history of Japan from the Yamato civilization to the feudal period with samurai outfit and No and Kabuki theater, ukiyo-e, floating world period with this hokusai woodblock print, and then they go through modern art like Yayoi Kusama and some of the other works by the living national treasures of Japan. The other exhibits in Asia feel kind of rushed. It's like one small section on each country. I think India has like one side of a wall, but considering the outsized nature of the country and the fact that it was the crown jewel in the British overseas empire, it should probably have maybe its own museum. As expected, the surrounding area is quite touristy, catering towards the many international visitors who come to visit the museum. See you next time. Thanks for watching.